Karmelo gon' be just fine. God gon' see about this in his own time. Hold your head high, don't let him steal your light. Karmelo gon' be just fine tonight. Peace be still, peace be still. That's just how we feel. Peace be still, peace be still. Keep your faith for real. Storm clouds hanging, people talking every day. Everybody got opinions, got something to say. But we praying for the truth, wherever it may lead. Praying for the family and everybody's needs. Know we tapped in, we watching every move. Trying to stay together while the world keep choosing sides to prove. Somebody hurting, somebody crying, that's the truth. So we asking God for wisdom while we're searching for the proof. Karmelo gon' be just fine. God gon' see about this in his own time. Hold your head high, don't let him steal your life. Karmelo gon' be just fine tonight. Peace be still, peace be still. That's just how we feel. Peace be still, peace be still. Keep your faith for real. Stay strong, little bro, don't give up the fight. The Most High still working in the dark and in the light. Family standing with you, love standing too. Keep your faith in the storm till you make it through. When the pressure gets heavy and the nights get long, remember every trial ain't where you belong. Keep your eyes on them all, keep your heart on God. One step at a time, keep moving through it all. We ain't giving up, we ain't backing down. Love gonna lift us when we're feeling on the ground. Hands to the heavens, prayers in the sky. Trusting in the truth as the days go by. Karmelo gon' be just fine. God gon' see about this in his own time. Family coming, faith coming too. The strength of the Most High gonna carry you. Peace be still, peace be still. That's just how we feel. Peace be still, peace be still. Keep your faith for real. Karmelo, stay strong. Keep holding on.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your daily vitamins. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time Queen Goddess goes live. All right, let's see who is in here. Let's see who we have. Juju is here, Pearly. All right, let's get into it. Lawyer, okay, Dangerous. All right, D Major is here. Truth Brown. Let's get into it. 57 Beige Fox. All right, Abishua. Okay. Desmond, Youngish Turnip, Trisha. All right, Pearly. I see you, beloved. Aquarius MC, Greta. Okay, Leon. Reggie is here. Cherokee Descendant Dale. All right, let's get into it. Everybody hit that like button. It doesn't cost you a single thing. All right. With that all being said, before we get started, hey, Deronda, C Stan is in the virtual building. Okay. Okay, so before we get started, as per usual, let's have a brief word from our sponsor, okay, at 12 Tribes. I see you, DJ Truth TV and Chocolates. All right, so here we go. Lovely T, hello, beloved.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
All right, so don't forget you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts, and she also sells beard oil. Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to be talking about Nolan Wells, Carmelo Anthony, and Daniel Irving. So that all being said, let's get into Daniel first. Okay, then we'll go to Carmelo, and then we'll save Nolan for last because there's more information that I'm going to have to give you on him. Okay, so likes up, everyone, please hit the like button. Okay, I mean, is it too much to ask? Okay, for all the Queen's hard work. Okay, so first we're going to go to a couple of reports, and then we're going to go to the press conference. Now, we're not going to watch the whole thing because it's like an hour long, but we're just going to listen to enough of it to get the gist of it all. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. And for those of you who don't know, if you haven't been following the story of Daniel Irving, he's a young black man. Okay, he went with two of his Caucasian friends to go fishing, and he did make it back alive. One of them has now been arrested. But the funny thing is, I think they've both been arrested, but one of them is a minor. But here's the thing, arrested for tampering with evidence, but not for killing him. And I do believe that they should know that they absolutely did something to this young man because there's a store owner or a business owner who says that he saw something captured on his surveillance footage. We're going to get into that next.
Justice for Daniel Irving.
The mother of a Texas teenager found dead in a Dallas area lake is now demanding murder charges after police say the friends her son was with covered up evidence instead of calling for help.
We're here to have murder charges brought against those two. I believe that they did it intentionally, knowingly, willingly.
18-year-old Daniel Irving, an honor roll student and member of his school swim team, drowned after jumping from a railroad bridge into Lake Ray Hubbard with two other teens, according to an arrest affidavit. The medical examiner ruled his death an accident, but police say instead of calling 911, the teens threw Irving's clothes into the trees, tossing his phone from their car, and deleted their messages with him. His body was left in the lake for 4 days. 19-year-old Lucas Roper and a juvenile are charged with tampering with evidence, but neither is accused of causing Daniel's death. Attorney Ben Crump has joined the case, demanding a grand jury.
They tried to destroy any connection they had to him. But thank God we serve a God that sits high and looks low, and the truth could not be hidden forever.
Amen.
Police say they conducted a thorough investigation, but Crump is drawing comparisons to another case he's working on in Mississippi, where 18-year-old Nolan Wells was found dead off a barrier island after a boat trip. He was the only one of his friends who did not come home. Investigators believe he drowned and say there were no immediate signs of foul play. Wells' parents, who are conducting their own investigation, are set to meet today with the district attorney. As for the case in Dallas, police say Lucas Roper told them he panicked after Irving drowned and deleted his messages, fearing he might get in trouble. We were unable to reach Roper for comment.
Now, here's the question. The question is, why would you think that you're going to get in trouble if you didn't do anything? Kurt says, why are they exploiting his death, grifter? Exploiting his death. They're trying to get justice, you imbecile. You're out of here. Okay, and moderators, please do me a favor and look for people saying ignorant things like that, and you know what to do, because those are traitors. I mean, not traitors, those are trolls. Okay, especially if you have not seen them here before. Okay, now I set the channel so that only subscribers can comment. But as you know, these trolls follow my channel. They literally subscribe to it just to come in here and try to wreak havoc. Okay? So please do your due diligence. How is it exploiting? And I want to tell you all something. Hold on. Before I get into this next video, let me just say this. I want to make it plain. I want to say two things specifically. Now, I was watching brother Phil Scott's channel, African Diaspora, and there's a lady on there that I follow. I don't know her name, but this lady is always, speaking the truth. And she was going in about how Black people have a habit, some of our people have a habit of listening to the MAGA minions and taking on their talking points. And that is what I see some of you doing as well. Now, I'm not saying anyone in my chat, but this is what I see some of our people doing as well. And she brought up two key points. She brought up how they called Ice Cube a sellout. Okay, remember when Ice Cube was trying to get something for us? He went to the Democrats and they said they didn't have time, wait till after the election. So then he went to Trump's people because they were willing to talk to him right then. And then Black people, foolish Black people, had the nerve to say that he sold us out. Now, here's the thing. Like I told you the same thing that she was saying. I told you the exact same thing. I said sometimes to get through hell, you may have to walk beside the devil. You may have to sit down at the table with the devil. Now, it wasn't as if he was supporting Trump, nor saying that any of us should, but he was going to the person in charge to try to get benefits for Black people. Okay, the platinum plan, that's what he came up with. But now, as she said, I hadn't really thought about this until I heard her speaking on it today. She said that at the end of the day, this is why we don't hear from Ice Cube. This is why we don't hear from Ice Cube. Now, how foolish could some of you be when Ice Cube has always been pro-Black since he started? Do you all not remember the first interview that we all saw him do? When he was about 23 years old in the 90s. Some of you are not old enough, so you probably don't remember that. But if you're up to my age or anywhere near, then I'm sure you should remember that. But the thing is, some of our people foolishly listen to the lies that the wanton supremacists put out. And then you start saying the same thing. Another person she brought up was Shaun King. You see, the wanton supremacist MAGA minions, they wouldn't want Shaun King helping us because Shaun King was bringing attention to many of the cases, just like she said, Ahmaud Arbery. Do you all not remember that it was Shaun King who brought attention to that case? Because Ahmaud Arbery's incident had happened like a month before. We even found out about it. The same with Breonna Taylor. Breonna Taylor's case had been sitting on the shelf for a month. That means that the police in both instances were trying to sweep those cases under the rug. Okay? So you have people who are out here trying to help us, and this is what some of our people do. And it is so ridiculous and obtuse. And then they start mimicking, like I said, spewing the same lies that these MAGA minions are saying. Now, you're going to have to get out of that and start using critical thinking skills. Okay, you have to start separating the truth from lies in order to have discernment, or you'll just be lost in the sauce. And now what I hear people doing, some of our own people, are going around saying that this whole thing with Nolan is a psyop, saying that it's fake. I saw someone saying that his mother wasn't crying. Well, I'm sure she cries when she's alone at night. I'm sure she's crying when she's in her bed before she falls asleep. She doesn't owe us her tears. Okay, she doesn't have to cry so that you or I can see. At the end of the day, it's obvious and clear to me that this woman loved her son and is clearly grieving him. She's holding it together to get justice. But then you have these foolish minions saying that Benjamin Crump is a race hustler. You know who started those rumors? And then some Black people say the same thing. I've heard it time and time again. He is not a race hustler. All attorneys are after their money. That's why they became attorneys. Are they supposed to be broke? But you should ask yourselves, what is Ben Crump getting out of this case with Nolan Wells? He's merely acting as a spokesperson with them and trying to help them get things accomplished and done because he has the ability to get in touch with people like Tyler Perry, Colin Kaepernick, Spike Lee. He and Al Sharpton, he can bring national attention to the story. And what he is doing is very paramount because he is putting it on the forefront. He's putting it out there for all the eyes to see. And if all the eyes are looking, then the devils down there in Ocean Springs will not be so easy to get away with the lies they've been telling, the disrespect they've been spewing, and all of the other things that they had planned that I'm sure we can only imagine. Okay? So he's doing what he needs to do. And for those who continue to say he's not about justice, he's never won a case, getting a settlement that is of significant monetary value for the family of the deceased is a victory. Okay, he's not a criminal attorney. He is a civil rights attorney, and that's what they do. And if you don't know that, then you need to learn that. Okay, now I'm not going off on any of you because, like I said, my regular royals who've been following me, you already know these things. So I scarcely think that any of you would have such foolish notions. But at the end of the day, you have to start realizing that the wanton supremacists, they always try to do things to stop us, to hinder us, or to make us feel like we should be shamed. Like they said, oh, you're supporting a murderer. When we were donating to Karmelo Anthony, they donate to murderers all the time. And their murderers are not trying to do it for self-defense. They're cold-blooded killers, okay, like Derek Chauvin, George Zimmerman, okay, and I could go on and on. But you get what I'm saying. Okay, so you need to stop. Any Black person that's listening and you've done this, you need to stop it. Okay, that's what we all need to focus on, is trying to get to the truth. And at the end of the day, you know, calling Shaun King Talcum X and clowning him, saying he wasn't really Black and calling him a grifter. This is why he doesn't say anything anymore. Do you know where Shaun King is right now? Shaun King is now, I believe he's a Muslim. Yeah, that's what it said on his page the last time I looked. We don't hear from him. Okay, and I see why. Because his own people mocked him, saying that he wasn't Black, because that's what the wanton supremacists told you. You didn't think for a second that he could have been passing like Meghan Markle. There are some biracial people who look more white than Black. Doesn't take away from their Blackness. And the fact that he was out there working and trying to help his people, and this is the thanks that he got, is also egregious as far as I'm concerned. Okay? As far as I'm concerned, that man had to come out and tell his own business, because some of our people just wouldn't believe it, wouldn't take him at his word. He had the proof and receipts, there's court documents and everything for anyone who still doesn't believe it. But his father is Black. Now, the man his mother was married to, it's not his father. That man helped to raise him. But at the end of the day, that he shouldn't really have had to come out and explain all of that, that his mother had an affair, and that he was the consequence of it. That was not our business. But due to the constant ridicule that this man was getting, he felt the need to come clean and just tell everybody that I wouldn't have told y'all nothing. Okay, I wouldn't have told y'all nothing. Either believe it or leave it. Because the bottom line is, to me, it didn't matter whether he was Black or white or other. As long as he was helping Black people, that should have been the focus. But some of you keep continuously letting these wanton supremacists steer your thinking. Like the slaves on the plantation, they steered their thinking. They told them what to think and how to think, and wouldn't allow them to read and research and things like that. And some of you willfully do it. They don't have to make you. You just go along and do it anyway. And it's so obtuse that it's sickening. Okay, so this is something that we all need to learn to stop doing. I don't need to learn because I know better, but I'm just saying, for those of you who have been doing that, I implore you to please stop, because it is so annoying. Talking about this whole case with Nolan is a psyop. Well, of course, the wanton supremacists want people to think it's fake. They called his mother, Nolan's mother, a crisis actor, and said she didn't have tears. That's right. Leon said some still looking for massa. Exactly. Okay, so I'm so sick and tired of it. It has to stop. And if you are that kind of Black person, please do not follow my channel, okay? Because I'm not that desperate for clicks and views or subscribers, all right? And nor will I ever be. You see, the thing of it is I'm on here trying to help my people. And that's what we all should be doing, okay? We should not be fussing in the chats. We should not be going in on one another. We are supposed to be trying to unify collectively and stay focused on the bigger picture. And if you can't do that, you should be asking yourself some serious questions as to why. Okay, what is wrong with you? And stop falling for the tricks of the devil. How is this a psyop? How is his mother a crisis actress? Like some idiot came in here yesterday saying, oh, she was in a sorority with the judge, talking about Judge Ashley Cole. So what if she was? What does that have to do? They were trying to imply that she gave her son for a sacrifice. That's what they were trying to get at. I knew what they were trying to say. That's why I asked them if they want to get up here and explain to us what they meant, and they didn't. And so I blocked them. But stop being ridiculous. This is what some of us really need to do. Stop being ridiculous and listen to asinine lies. These people don't listen to anything we tell them when it comes to the truth. You know why they don't listen? Because they don't care about the truth and facts and evidence. And I've told you that 1,000 times. This is why with the Carmelo Anthony case, when it was Karmelo in Austin, when we were telling the truth about it, when we were saying what we thought and why we're defending Karmelo, they don't want to hear that. And even now that Mike Howard has come out and said all that he said, and all of the truth has been put out there, and everything that we were saying turned out to be absolutely right, and they were so wrong. Now you don't even hear them mentioning Karmelo. And that's why, because they know that they can't say anything to debunk it, because one of their own people who was in the courtroom said it. So now what they're fixated on is Nolan, because they don't want their three little rich white men to go to prison. They don't want them to be viewed as the thugs that they possibly are. I don't know until the autopsy report comes back. But the bottom line is, either way, they still left him there. They still tried to cover it up by deleting pictures, deleting things out of his phone, by scrubbing that boat 3 o'clock in the morning, okay, by lying about the phone and the keys, not returning those things to the parents willfully. Okay, they've done enough clearly to arouse suspicion. Okay, so these minions, they don't want to talk about that. And just to prove my point, let me go to a comment that I saw someone left. And here's the thing too, you should all realize by now that the devils themselves try so desperately to tell us what to think and how to think. This is why I told you I don't let them in my chat. As soon as I realize who they are, they're out. This is why I told you that I told the people on the TikTok lives, why do you let them come in here? They don't care what we're saying. All they try to do is debunk us with their lies and BS. And when we ask them for facts, proof, and receipts, they never have any, but then they want to make sure we have them. But don't worry, we do in the TikTok live that I go to. Okay, but this is what they do. And they try to paint narratives and control the narrative. But they're not going to control this. That's what they're not going to do. So let me go, and they want to tell us what we should be focused on. So let me just give you an example of what I'm talking about. Likes up, everyone, please, like and share. So this is a comment. A black man made a video talking about why he supports Nolan and all of that. And this is what some devil said. I think we should not only focus on any suspicious death, white or black, because we are all Americans, but also be outraged over the 48 victims in Chicago last week of gun violence. How almost 900 victims of gun violence this year in Chicago. I mentioned Chicago because more young Americans are being killed there than any other state in America. Let's start there and fix the inner cities. Because from where I see, there is selective outrage when it comes to different American races. So as Americans, let's start fixing the bigger problems first. Now, who do they think they are to tell us what to focus our efforts on? First of all, as I've said so many times, those shootings in Chicago are not always being done by black folk. It is some of those same people dressed in derrick suits. Okay, please don't be fooled by the BS. Now, let me just show you what I said to them in response, because I just happened to see that comments. And I already knew that there was someone who wasn't of my skin tone. It was very obvious when they kept talking about Americans, this, that, and the third. And they always bring up Chicago. I want you to pay attention to that. Or black on black crime, as if that's what we need to focus on. Don't worry about this. Worry about this over here. Don't have selective outrage when they're the masters, the kings and queens of selective outrage. Now, here was my response. And this is the post that they left that on. I said to them, you don't give a darn about Chicago. You're just mad that we're on the three devils trail. And by that, I mean the three devils that left Nolan. You don't get to tell us what or where to focus our energy. Instead of focusing on Austin, the known bully, you all should have focused on why you have an opioid epidemic and so many school shooters. Okay? Because two can play the game. If they want to tell us what we should be fixated on, well, let me just tell them what they should be fixated on. Austin was just one thugged out bully with a racist mindset, just like many of them. So why focus on one? You have people like Chud the Builder going around harassing people. You have Jake Lane going around doing the same. So why would you worry about your thugged out racist bullies? Focus on your opioid crisis, the fentanyl problem, okay? Because that's what's taking you out, okay? That's how that goes. Now let me continue. I'm sorry, but I just had to say it because I get so sick and tired of the BS coming from them.
Get started for only $39 for.
Amid a mother's grief
I want justice for Daniel.
and calls for more investigation,
And we will not stop until we get justice.
David Hull
I'm very disturbed by it.
says he sent police key evidence about what happened when 18-year-old Daniel Irving died at Lake Ray Hubbard 3 months ago.
Just in an opinion, something disturbed them and they were trying to get out of here fast.
He says the surveillance cameras on his lakeside business showed 3 teenagers getting out of a vehicle and heading toward a railroad bridge. An hour later,
We saw 2 people come back out and they were coming very fast, running, and they got in the white vehicle and left.
now police have arrested the pair, not for Irving's death, but for tampering with evidence. In an affidavit, they say 19-year-old Lucas Roper and a 16-year-old threw out Irving's cell phone and his clothes as they fled.
Why would you throw away his clothes and delete messages and not even?
I'm sorry, I forgot I was muted. You all see this man right here, the Middle Eastern looking man, or maybe he's East Indian. This looks like one of Karmelo's new attorneys. I believe that is. Okay, but let's continue.
Call his mother.
Irving's family has hired lawyers for a private investigation, and activists say they want murder charges brought.
They saw them go. They're 2 white individuals with a black male. And then when they returned to the car, they did not see that black male.
Police say the medical examiner determined Irving drowned and ruled his manner of death was accidental. Police say Roper told them all 3 teenagers jumped into the lake from the railroad track bridge. Daniel Irving drowned and suspect Roper panicked.
The young kids today, their grandparents jumped off that bridge.
Hull calls it a rite of passage for local high schoolers, one that's caused deaths before, and now more heartache and hard questions. In Dallas, I'm Cole Sullivan.
If your fridge has any
Darn shame. Prayers and condolences for his family, and I hope that they do get justice because, you know, to me, it seems as though the police wanted to sweep his case under the rug as well. And I find it interesting that they can arrest people for tampering with evidence, but not for the crime of which we should clearly know that they have committed. Okay, now I'm going to go to the press conference. We're going to start at the 26-minute mark because that's when it actually starts. The rest of it was just, you know, the waiting for the live to start. So it took about 26 minutes. That's right, 57 Beige Fox. I don't think it was an accident either. And you know what I find interesting? I really think they did something nefarious for him to drown like that because he was on the school swim team. So clearly he had to have been a very good swimmer, or at least pretty good. You know, that just seems very strange.
We can have everybody come join us.
Let me just say really quickly, hey, Sean Moore. Okay, so let me just say really quickly, shout out to all of my new subscribers. Welcome to the Royals. Okay, we have the most nefarious chat on YouTube. We have fun here, and you know, we cover controversial and different types of topics, even political topics as well. Okay, so you're going to enjoy this channel, I assure you, because I bring receipts, not BS.
Hello, my name is Minister Dominic Alexander, President and founder of the Next Generation Action Network. Today, we stand here with the family of Daniel Irving, Washawn Duradia, the attorney, Blair Mamazi, also Reverend Ronald Wright with the Texas Justice Seekers, as well as Crystal Bates with the NAACP DFW chapter, also family, friends, supporters, community leaders, and so many people who have stood with this family in this last 3 months. Today is 3 months since Daniel Irving left his home on April 13th.
And let me just add this, okay? This young man died in April. We did not hear anything about this story. Some of you may have heard it, but for the most part, this is a new story for most of us because they swept this under the rug. The only reason it is out in the forefront now is because the little thugs that were with him, they were arrested July the 9th for tampering with the evidence. That's the only reason we're hearing about this, because this had literally been swept under the rug.
Let me say that again. Today is 3 months, April 13th. I don't want to hear someone say that the Next Generation Action Network rushed to judgment. I don't want to hear nobody say that we gave our own opinion of this case, or we're just assassinating the character. Because what this family did is respect the process. They allowed the police department to investigate this situation. They continue to demand every day that charges be brought against these boys. Before I say anything, I want to address what the Next Generation Action Network always deal with. We did not.
Damn, girl, you did put it away right at the buffet, but I can't see any belly. Where's it at?
Right here, but you
Create American history. We inherited it. Black Americans did not create disparities. We inherited a justice system that goes from generations to generations. This is not about race baiting that white America likes to bring up. This is about us demanding a system to work just like we see it work for our white counterparts in America. I've been doing this for 12 years. It doesn't take 3 months to investigate what happened to Daniel Irving. Tampering with the evidence charge is an outright disrespect to this family, to me, to this community. You cannot later on say this is an accident when you fail to report. Black Americans have realized when we leave someone and we leave the scene of what could be alleged as a crime, we are later picked up within 24 hours, maybe even the same hour. But that's history, that's facts. That's not some made up story that Dominique Alexander created in 2026. It's what we know, the justice system. This family was hit with the fact of a police officer saying after Riley Johnson came into the police department, that's the minor suspect in this case with his parents, after days, that this may be a mistake. But you fail to go back to the house you picked Daniel Irving up and tell this family that something happened. You threw out his clothes out of a moving vehicle. You threw out his cell phone in a moving vehicle. Eyewitness says that they never saw them with fishing rods. They saw them go there, 2 white individuals with a black male, and then when they returned to the car, they did not see that black male. What, after 90 days, can this family call that? We can only call it murder. The fact that I have to have this mother endure another press conference to address this issue. We just want justice just like any other family, no matter the race, color, creed, or orientation. This mother should not have to look at the fact or look at the ashes of her son. Daniel should be preparing himself for his life in the military, as I was told. Daniel will never have that wedding, that child, whatever God had in store for him. It was taken. And yet there is a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, Lucas Roper and Riley Johnson, who have been arrested with tampering with evidence. But I'm here to say to Dallas Police Department and to the Dallas County District Attorney, John Cruzo, we want murder charges. We demand it. We want it now. I'm gonna bring up the first family attorney, Sean DeRadia.
Daniel Irving was a son, a brother, a high school senior who had his whole life ahead of him. He was an honor roll student. He was a member of his swim team. On April 13th, 2026, Daniel Irving and two individuals went to Lake Ray Hubbard. That day, only two of those individuals returned. They returned home to their families, and Daniel Irving ended up on the bottom of Lake Ray Hubbard, never to see his mother or his family ever again. My name is Attorney Sean DeRadia, and I'm here with my co-counsel, Mr. Blair Malmazi, and we have the honor and privilege to be retained by Ms. Tamika Irving and her family to conduct an independent investigation as to the cause of death of Mr. Daniel Irving.
And that is Karmelo's attorney. Yeah, his last name is Radia. That's him.
Now you may ask, why do we need an independent investigation? That is because this family has lost confidence in the system that is supposed to protect them. This family has a distrust of the Dallas Police Department. They have not given this death of an 18-year-old Daniel Irving the urgency it deserves and demands.
Wait, you don't write anything down after conversations?
This is
Daniel Irving was an honor roll student. He was a member of his swim team. He was a strong, healthy young athlete. For these two suspects to say he drowned and they left, it doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. Something smells off to us. Those two suspects let Daniel Irving, they let his body sit on the bottom of Lake Ray Hubbard for 4 days. 4 days he sat there. They went to school, they lived their lives, they talked to their parents, talked to their friends, acted like nothing happened. Only after this case got media attention, after it was on the news, social media, there was a manhunt, police were looking. That's when they came over. 4 days it took them, and they said it was an accident. If it's an accident, why hide the clothes? Why flee the scene? Why toss Daniel Irving's cell phone out the car? Better yet, why do you have Daniel Irving's cell phone? Why go home and delete every text message, every communication? If you have nothing to hide and it's an accident, why delete the evidence? Why delete the text? Those are the answers we demand. This is a call to action. We are asking and demanding that the Dallas Police Department conduct a thorough, complete, and impartial investigation. Follow the facts where they may lead, and bring the appropriate charges, including but not limited to murder, to the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. This family, this community will not accept tampering charges, a measly $10,000 bond as the final say for Daniel Irving. We won't accept that. Take this case, take the facts, take the evidence to a grand jury and bring the appropriate charges. We will not let Daniel Irving's name die in vain. We will not let his name die in vain, and we will say his name, and we will say it loud and proud. Daniel Irving deserves justice. We came here for three things today. We came here to demand justice, to demand accountability, and to demand change. Justice for Daniel Irving. Accountability for every single person involved in the death of Daniel Irving. And change. So no mother has to stand before, in this situation, demanding, begging, pleading to get justice for her son. This is a difficult time for this family. This has been tough. But again, we want justice. We want accountability, and we want change. And we will not be quiet. We will not stop, and we will not go away until we get justice for Daniel Irving. Thank you.
To quote William Shakespeare, something's rotten in the state of Denmark. What we know today are the same facts that the Dallas Police Department knew on April 17th when they interviewed these suspects. And why did it take them 3 months to decide to do anything about it? Why did it take thousands, tens of thousands of people, millions of views on social media to get our law enforcement agencies to do the job that we expect them to do every day? Why did it take a room full of cameras to get people in the Dallas Police Department, in the Rowlett Police Department, in the Dallas County District Attorney's Office to finally pay attention to this mother? Miss Irving shouldn't have had to beg officers to ping her son's cell phone after he went missing. She shouldn't have had to beg for 1 day. Not even for 1 hour she should have had to beg. But that's what she did. They left this mother with no choice but to do her own investigation, to hire her own attorneys, because the system failed her. A system that should have been there to protect her, to deliver accountability and justice, failed her. And it is quite frankly a slap in the face of this mother and this community that tampering with evidence charges alone are what we're here to discuss. We have no idea if the Dallas Police Department or the District Attorney's Office is even having a murder investigation at this moment. What we do know is the same facts they knew on April 16th are what's known today. Why did it take 3 months after interviewing?
Okay, I'm gonna stop right there for a minute. Now, that's a very good question. So 3 months later, you don't have any viable evidence other than what you already knew. Okay, they should have immediately been arrested, in my opinion, after it was known that they didn't report it right away and went on about their lives. Like, how cold and callous is that? So your friend is dead and you can just go to school and act like nothing happened? It takes a special kind of person to be able to do that and hold it together and act as though there's nothing wrong. Okay, I want you all to pay attention to the coldness and the callousness of it. All right, now, someone said, Buckhorst DC said troll alert. Okay, Buckhorst DC, you need to put the name of the troll when you're making these allegations so that the moderators can look for the person. Okay? So just keep that in mind, beloveds. Now, with that all being said, Youngest Turner says the kids in the Nolan case should have been arrested by now also. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, we're going to go back to about 3 to 5 more minutes of this because I think the mother's about to speak. And after that, we're going to move on.
Why was this mother left with no other choice? It's a systemic failure. And if the Dallas Police Department, if Rowlett Police Department, if the DA's office can't do their job, then the federal government should step in and do that job for them.
In life, growth doesn't happen alone. Family.
All right, I won't hold you long. You all heard the story, but we're here just to let you know that we have to hold our police department accountable for the work that needs to be done. And as a community, until we wake up, we are going to continue to go through what we're going through. And so we want the police department. I talked with one of the captains, and we had a nice little chat, and a couple of hours later, they made an arrest. So the point is, we have to hold them accountable, and the district attorney always is familiar with what this case was all about, and it's unfortunate that this mother had to go through what she went through. And I know Dominique said it doesn't want to be a racial thing, but that is what it's all about. And I'm going to tell you the truth, because if the other way around, those young men that look like me would be in prison, not alone in jail. So it's time for us to wake up as a people so we can make sure justice is for all and not for some.
Amen.
Okay, we're moving on. I thought the mother was going to speak. With that all being said, like I said, prayers and condolences for the family, friends, and loved ones. That is very sad and tragic. But I want you all to pay attention to how they had to go through all of these hoops and loops, okay, for the police to do their job. You see, the police, in many cases, simply don't care when Black people die. They specifically don't care when Black people die at the hands of white people. They just don't care most of the time, okay? And again, like I told you all last week, they're taking out the best of the best. This young man was on the honor roll. He was on the school swim team. He wanted to go into the military. He had big dreams for himself. They're not out here killing our thugs and gangbangers. They're out here killing the ones who would become productive citizens in society as they get older, okay? Who are destined for great things. And that's what we should all be paying attention to. Now, TC, Dan, and the rest of the moderators, Desmond, and the like, I believe this is the troll that possibly Bookhorse DC. Yeah, he said this is the troll. Okay, I don't see that person in the chat. Maybe they left. But anyone who says God is the devil is clearly trolling. Now, mind you, I didn't block them because, maybe they're an atheist. I don't know. So with that all been said, if you keep your eye on this person, Cartaris, okay, so if they say anything ridiculous, please get rid of them ASAP, okay? Now, let's move on to Karmelo Anthony. Likes up, everyone, please. Like and share. Thank you in advance. So they have gotten a new judge in Karmelo's case. Now, this is not the judge who's going to decide whether or not the appeal goes through. This is simply the person who is going to review whether or not Judge Roach has committed enough or has shown enough bias to be recused, because he's refusing to recuse himself, mind you. Okay, so now this was filed on yesterday. Okay, the state of Texas First Administrative Judicial Region, order of assignment by the presiding judge. Okay, so the judge is assigned to preside, and the motion to recuse the Honorable John Roach filed in cause number, and then there's the case number, style the state of Texas versus Karmelo Sincere Anthony. Now, this assignment is effective immediately and shall continue for such time as be necessary for the assigned judge to handle this motion. It is ordered that the clerk of the court to which this assignment is made, if it is reasonable and practical, and if time permits, give notice of this assignment to each attorney representing a party to a case that is to be heard in whole or in part by the assigned judge. It is further ordered that the clerk, upon receipt hereof, shall post a copy of this order in a public area of the clerk's office or courthouse so that the attorneys and parties may be advised of this assignment. Okay? And it looks like Ray Wheeler is the person who signed that. Now, with that all being said, why wouldn't Judge Roach recuse himself? Why would he not want to just go ahead and get it over with and recuse himself? Let's talk about it. Now, Judge John Roach declined to recuse himself from Karmelo Anthony's murder case. Instead of stepping aside, he referred the defense's recusal motion to the presiding judge of First Administrative Judicial Region for review. The judge had requested his removal over public statement. The defense had requested his removal over public comments he made defending the jury's guilty verdict. Okay? Because remember, he said the jury made the right choice. So now the new pro bono defense team led by attorney Russell Wilson submitted a 63-page motion focused on multiple alleged constitutional and legal violations rather than a debate over Anthony's guilt or innocence. Okay, the core arguments include violation of public trial rights. The defense claims that tight restrictions on seating and the ban on courtroom streaming effectively closed the trial to the public. The flawed jury selection, because we know there was the Batson challenge. Biased jury instructions. Now, they say the defense argues the instructions were engineered in such a way that made it structurally difficult for jurors to fairly consider Anthony's self-defense arguments. And the right to testify. They claim Anthony was unfairly restricted, giving him just 10 minutes to decide whether he would take the stand. Now, the recusal motion stems from media interviews Collin County Judge John Roach Jr. gave to local and national news outlets shortly after the verdict. His public commentary broke standard judicial neutrality by endorsing the verdict. He explicitly told reporters that the jury got it right and listened to the facts. Defending his own rulings is another thing that he did. He went beyond procedural explanations to advocate for his courtroom closures and his dismissal of the Black prospective jurors. Commenting on the defendant. That's another thing he did. He described Anthony as a nice young man who committed a crime and understands those consequences. Now, the defense argues that by publicly doubling down on his own rulings and validating the verdicts, Judge Roach destroyed any appearance of impartiality required to rule on the pending motion for a new trial. Now, because Judge Roach declined to voluntarily step down, the motion was referred to the regional administrative level. Texas Regional Presiding Judge Sid Harley has now been officially assigned to review the recusal dispute. Judge Harley's immediate jurisdiction is strictly limited to deciding whether Judge Roach has a conflict or appearance of bias that requires his removal. He is not deciding on the murder conviction itself. Now, if Judge Harley rules to remove Roach, a completely independent judge will then be appointed to take over the post-trial proceedings and rule on Anthony's request for a new trial. And let me just tell you a bit about Judge Harley, and then we'll move on. So Judge Sid Harley is widely recognized as one of the most prominent, experienced, and tough but fair senior jurists in the Texas legal system. Known for his deep adherence to constitutional rules, he has spent nearly 4 decades navigating high-stakes criminal trials and administrative disputes. Now, first appointed by Governor Abbott in 2017 and recently reappointed in 2025, Harley serves as the presiding judge of Texas's 4th Administrative Judicial Region. He oversees judicial administration across 22 counties. Okay, 30 years on the criminal bench. Prior to his regional role, he served for 29 years as the presiding judge of the 226th District Court in Bexar County, handling complex felony cases. Capital murder expertise. During his career, Harley has presided over numerous death penalty cases, notably during a run for the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals records during a run for the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Records highlighted that none of his death penalty sentences have ever been overturned on appeal. Exonerating the wrongfully convicted. Now, in the landmark Michael Morton case, Harley presided over the DNA evidentiary hearings that ultimately overturned Morton's wrongful murder conviction, winning praise from defense attorneys for his pursuit of due process. Okay, so this sounds good so far as I'm concerned. Okay, overturning corrupt convictions. Okay, wrongfully convicted and corrupt convictions. Okay, those are two different things, but both of those things happened to Karmelo. So in 2021, Harley recommended that the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals completely vacate the death row conviction of Clinton Young after exposing severe prosecutorial misconduct. And that is exactly the case with Mr. Anthony. Now, he served 2 consecutive terms as the chair of the Texas State Commission on Judicial Conduct, the exact entity tasked with investigating ethical breaches and inappropriate public comments by Texas judges. Okay, so I did a background check on him, not a background check, but I looked into him to see what kind of record and history he had. Okay, so with that all being said, it sounds like he might be pretty fair, and let us just hope that he is, because according to his record, it looks like he would be someone who would absolutely want Judge Cockroach recused, okay, because he clearly has shown bias, and also there was a whole bunch of prosecutorial misconduct, but again, he doesn't have anything to do with that part, okay? That'll be for the next judge if he has, or after he has Judge Roach recused, which hopefully he will. Now, let's continue, because what I want to say about Nolan, his family has been gravely disrespected, in my opinion, with all of the stalling tactics by the sheriff and the people that work, the law enforcement in Ocean Springs. Okay, them not getting back to the mother since last Tuesday, and then after she says something, then now they want to have a meeting, which is fine, but why did she have to go through all of that? And also, I want to talk about this video. Now, I can't substantiate this or not. They sound believable, but who knows? At the end of the day, what I'm going to be doing moving forward is any information that comes out that doesn't come specifically from the parents, Ben Crump, you know, or anyone in that area, I'm just going to take it with a grain of salt, and I implore you to do the same. And after you watch this video, we're going to talk about what happens during underwater decomposition, okay? I'm going to give you some peer-reviewed information on that. So likes up, everyone, please like and share. Thank you in advance.
So today, we actually know someone that works transporting bodies, human remains, and things like that. So today I got a call from that person, and they were just talking about the body that they
came across. This was Nolan Wells.
So before knowing all that, he said that the body was mistreated.
Yeah.
It looked abused. It looked like he was tortured. Looked as if he was burnt, maybe.
Where?
Face, body, said he was burnt.
And not only that, his body was mistreated when they transported him.
So as they were transporting him, he was actually face down. So everyone knows when you're transporting a body, when, you know, only a couple of people work that job, they all know you don't transport the body face down. It's kind of very disrespectful. So you always have them face up. Well, specifically his body whatever reason was face down. And me personally, I took that as disrespect.
Yeah.
Heart goes out to the family.
Yes, definitely.
Because all we know is what they put out
on the internet.
But today we actually found out a lot about his autopsy without even reading the autopsy.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking.
I'm so sorry that family have to go through this. Really just
want to give our condolences to the family, you know, as a mom or moms,
grandmothers,
dads, family, period. You know, just we give the most prayers to you, and we stand behind you because we know right what really happened.
Right. So,
and at the end of the day, whatever lies those families have covered up, or whatever lies they're trying to cover, we're sorry. Yeah. And we're here for you. And we just want you to know that what was seen today was
unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And that's why we want to inform what's going on during the transport. Like that.
Something you can be quiet on
at all.
When you've seen something so heartbreaking as a child, you know, go through something traumatic.
Yes.
It hurts to know that was done to him in the ways that we can't even express.
Right.
And as a person, you should have some type of humanity.
Right.
And I felt like those people who was transporting him did not have humanity in no way, shape, or form. Because if I can feel the way I feel about the situation, just listening to what happened, you also can listen to what happened to this child.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, that is a child that you did that to.
Right.
So this child needs justice.
Justice.
Because
Justice
we're not going to sleep until he gets it.
At all. And I heard the feds are in Mississippi right now. So justice for Nolan Wells.
No matter what.
Our heart goes out to his mom,
his
family, everybody.
And just know, families, we're coming for you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, they look like they work at a hospital. Now, I did hear that they are nurses. I can't substantiate that, but I definitely hope that they don't get in trouble at work, okay, for doing that video and saying that, you know, they know what happened, because I'm sure that the people that don't look like them would not like that at all. So what I want to talk about is the fact of how they say the condition of the body looked like it was burned or whatever. And of course, this is hearsay speculation. We don't know if it's true or not. We don't know if anything they said is true or not. But at the end of the day, so like I said, we'll take it as with a grain of salt. But so what I want to talk about to you all is underwater decomposition. I've had a talk with you all about this before. If you remember when Jelani Day was found in the river, okay, just a few years ago. And his circumstances were different than Nolan's because he had been there longer. And he absolutely had his organs and all of that removed. Okay, so I just want you all to see, this is National Library of Medicine. Okay, so just so you know where I'm getting my information from. So let's talk about it, because they said that his body was not waterlogged, right? So would the body be waterlogged after 2 days? Because that's how long he's supposed to have been there. They said that he went missing on July the 4th. He was found on the morning of the 6th. So let's get into it. So a submerged body would absolutely be waterlogged within 48 hours. So I find it interesting that it was not. So during this time, the skin absorbs water, causing it to swell and typically develop wrinkled, pale, or softened skin on the hands and feet. Sometimes this is referred to as washerwoman's hands. You know, when your hands look wrinkled up if they've been submerged in water too long. I'm sure we've all seen it. So that's what starts to happen. Now, however, whether the body floats or remains on the bottom depends heavily on a few environmental variables. That would be the temperature of the water. Warmer water speeds up the bacterial decomposition and gas production, causing the body to bloat and float sooner. Now, whereas cold water significantly delays this process. So by the fact that it was in July and it was hot, the water was probably hot as well, I would think. Now, buoyancy and clothing. Okay, so a drowning victim's lungs initially fill with water, causing them to sink. Now, they typically stay submerged for a few days until decomposition gases build up, making the body buoyant enough to rise to the surface. So, with that all being said, now we know that Nolan was in salt water because the Horn Island is surrounded by salt water. Okay, and sometimes the type of water also makes a difference. Okay, likes up, everyone, please like and share. Now, if the body has been submerged for 48 hours but shows no signs of being waterlogged, it typically indicates specific environmental or physical anomalies, meaning things that don't happen often. Let's talk about what those things would be. Protective barriers. For example, the skin was shielded from direct water contact by perhaps waterproof clothing, heavy gear, or a protective wrapping. We know that wasn't the case because all Nolan had on was a pair of swimming trunks. Extreme cold. Freezing or near freezing water temperatures drastically slow down both water absorption and the decomposition process. The water, I don't believe it would have been cold on a hot day, like I said. Recent entry. Now, the body may not have actually been in the water for the full 2 days, suggesting a shorter immersion time than estimated. And then there is chemical factors. Okay, heavy pollution or specific chemicals in the water can allow or can alter how skin absorbs liquid. Now, I'm telling you all of this to see if it sounds like he was really in that water for 2 days or perhaps was placed there. Now, of course, we won't know for certain until the autopsy report comes, okay? So if none of those elements fit the scenario, it is possible that the body was placed in the water after death. Okay, so it didn't fit any of those scenarios that I just said. Okay, now I'm not saying that it was placed in the water, but there is a possibility. It said highly possible. Okay, that is highly possible and is a classic forensic indicator of a post-mortem submersion, meaning that the body was placed in the water after death. Now, when a person dies before entering the water, the lack of active circulation and specific biochemical shifts can alter how the body interacts with the environment compared to a drowning victim. Now, forensic indicators of postmortem submersion. Let's talk about some of those. Absence of water in lungs. A body that was already dead when it entered the water will not have inhaled water into the deep airways or lungs, as breathing had already ceased. Lividity patterns. Postmortem lividity, which is the pooling of blood, okay, fixes based on the body's position during the first few hours after death. If the lividity pattern matches a flat surface rather than how the body was floating, it proves the body was moved after death. Okay? And then there's something called delayed maceration. Without the metabolic processes of a living body or the specific pressure changes of drowning, the wrinkling or the maceration of the skin can sometimes follow a different timeline, especially if the body was kept in a dry environment first. Now, if terrestrial insects such as blowflies laid eggs on the body before it was submerged, their presence can help pathologists prove the body was on land before entering the water. You see, this is some information that I was privy to learn and study about when I was in college for criminal justice. Our professor actually bought a pig and set it out in the hot sun on a part of the campus, and we left it there for days. And every day we had to go back and check on the different stages of decomposition and then write down, what bugs were coming, what all we saw, what changes, if the gases had started to build up. But we did the same thing with a pig that had been submerged in water. Okay? So now with that all being said, these bugs can absolutely help the pathologist to determine how long the body's been deceased. Okay, so with that all being said, let's continue. Now, here's the thing. A person that is drowned is very usually, okay, it's the norm for them to be waterlogged, but they're not automatically waterlogged, okay? And that's if they are recovered shortly after the incident. So skin changes like severe wrinkling, bloating, and skin peeling, which is the maceration, that's what that meant, are entirely a function of time and environment, not the mechanism of death. Drowning causes internal asphyxiation, but it does not instantly alter the external skin. So a short immersion time. So if a person drowns and their body is recovered quickly, okay, such as within a few minutes to a few hours, their skin will look almost entirely normal. Pronounced washerwoman wrinkling of the hands and feet typically requires several hours to develop, while total tissue bloating will take days. Okay, so in roughly 10 to 20% of drownings, a severe throat spasm known as a larginospasm seals the airway completely. Now, the person suffocates without actually inhaling massive amounts of water into their lungs. Internally, they are far less fluid-filled than a typical drowning victim. And they talk about icy freezing water and the physical breakdown of the skin and the bacterial processes that cause the bloating are dramatically slowed down. A body dropped in an icy lake might look remarkably well preserved even after a couple of days. Well, we know that wasn't the case. Okay, so to prove a drowning occurred, a pathologist looks inside the body, not just at the skin. They search for the plume of white froth in the airways, water in the stomach, and specific electrolyte imbalances in the blood. External waterlogging proves the body spent time in the water, but not how it died. So the fact that there was no waterlogging, that's very interesting and that's very significant, okay? Because that proves the body spent time in the water. Now, right after the incident generally means under 2 to 4 hours. Within this tight window, the external body looks almost exactly as it did at the time of death. Now, let's talk about the forensic timeline of early immersion. Okay, so from 30 minutes or less, no visible external skin changes. The skin behaves normally. 30 minutes to 2 hours, the very first signs of washerwoman skin, the slight wrinkling may begin appearing on the fingertips and toes. 2 to 4 hours, wrinkling becomes distinct on the palms and soles of the feet, but the rest of the body shows no bloating, discoloration, or waterlogging. And that's after 2 to 4 hours. 24 or more hours, this is when severe wrinkling, skin whitening, and early bloating take place. Now, if a drowning victim is found floating within 2 to 4 hours of the 2 to 4 hour window, it heavily influences the timeline and the initial discovery scene. Now, I'm not going to read all of this. I'm going to skip down some. So on a very hot day, those claims are forensic gold to investigators. Hold on. Let me go back. Okay, so they say the person will look as if under 4 hours, the person will look like they just fell in. The skin won't be bloated, white, or severely wrinkled. The face will likely be submerged or partially submerged, and a characteristic white cone-shaped froth may bubble from the nose and mouth due to the mixing of air, water, and mucus in the lungs. Okay? Then they say, on a very hot day, those claims are forensic gold for investigators. The extreme heat introduces massive biological contradictions that would instantly make any seasoned detective suspicious of the 2 to 4 hour drowning narrative. Okay, now why heat blows the cover? If a person drowned naturally on a scorching hot day, their body temperature would drop slowly and their internal organs would still be pristine. Now, however, if the body was placed there after being killed hours or days prior, the heat will expose the lie in 3 major ways. Let's talk about those ways. Rigor mortis contradiction. Extreme heat drastically accelerates rigor mortis, which is the muscle stiffening when the body gets real stiff. Okay, if a person died on land in the blistering heat 6 hours ago and was just dumped in the water, their body will be entirely rigid. A true 2 hour drowning victim would still be completely limp or only showing slight stiffness in the jaw. Now, drowning victims naturally sink first. It usually takes 24 to 72 hours of hot weather for internal bacteria to produce enough gas to force a submerged body to bloat and rise to the surface. If a body is floating at the surface but shows no signs of bloating or waterlogging, it didn't rise naturally. It was either kept afloat artificially or dropped directly into the surface of the water very recently. Do y'all hear that? Do y'all hear that? Because it sounded like that body was placed there, in my opinion. Okay, it sounded like, from what I'm reading, it sounded like the body was placed there. Okay, now, if the body was dead on land for a few hours before being dumped, gravity would have pulled and fixed the blood into the lowest parts of the corpse. Okay, and that is liver mortis. If the bloating body has deep purple pooling on its back, but it is floating face down in the water, it proves the body was lying on its back on land for hours before being tossed in. Now, and here's another thing. Let me go to this next information I pulled up because I wanted to know specifically about the dental records. because we know that they only need dental records when they can't identify you just from looking at you. So dental records, so dental records would generally not be necessary for identification after just 2 days in the water, especially if the body was not waterlogged. Do y'all hear that? Because I want you all to know that they said his body was not waterlogged and they had to use dental records to identify him. That's not supposed to happen. Okay, I'm no forensic pathologist, but I do plenty of research. And I did go to school for criminal justice, so I did study some of these things. Okay, I actually have an amateur forensic scientist award. Okay, now, with that all being said, C-STAN says it happened in Katrina, the floating dead. Exactly. Thank you for that, beloved, and your contribution to the channel. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. So let me read that again. Dental records would generally not be necessary for identification after just 2 days in the water, which is how long he was supposed to have been there, from July the 4th and 5th and found on the 6th, especially if the body was not waterlogged. Okay, if the body wasn't waterlogged, there should not be a need to have the person identified through dental records. Now, that's not 100% because remember, there's always exceptions to the rule, but that's very suspicious in my opinion. You see, they say because the skin is not severely degraded, bloated, or macerated, the body's physical features will still be highly recognizable. Okay, so after those 2 days, because it wasn't waterlogged. Now, here's the thing. After only 48 hours without waterlogging, the facial structure, the eyes, and the skin tone will look almost exactly as it did in life. Now, those young ladies said that they were told his body looked as though it were burned. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but what I do know is his body had to be in bad shape to need dental records to identify him. Now, family members or acquaintances could easily make a visual identification. That's not the case with Nolan. Viable fingerprints. Now, the fingerprints or the skin on the fingerprints would still be intact if the body had only been there for 48 hours and had not been waterlogged. Even if slight wrinkling has occurred, forensic techs can easily roll standard fingerprints to match against databases. So they would have been able to take his fingerprints. Likely they wouldn't have had his fingerprints on file because he's not a criminal. Okay, any identifying marks such as tattoos, birthmarks, or surgical scars will be perfectly visible and unaltered by the water in 48 hours if there is no waterlogging. Now, here's the thing. Even if the body is recognizable, a detective or medical examiner might still request dental records if the body has no ID, if the victim has no wallet, phone, or missing persons report matching their description. No visual ID is possible. Okay? That's not the case because he was reported missing and his mother gave them a description. Another reason would be if there's a legal confirmation required. Many jurisdictions mandate a scientifically verifiable match, such as fingerprints, DNA, or dental records for the official death certificate rather than relying on solely a grieving family member's visual confirmation. Prior facial trauma. Now, if the actual cause of death involved severe trauma to the face before the body was placed in the water, dental records would become the primary backup method. So if a person was perhaps beaten in their face, okay, very viciously, then you would need the dental records. Okay? So I want you all to pay attention because what this is giving is that his body was put there. Now, this is not a fact. This is only my opinion and my speculation. I can't substantiate this. The autopsy report will tell the truth. And then last but not least, I wanted to know how a body could possibly look as though it were burned, because they said that his body looked burned, according to whoever told them that, right? So, you know, during some stages of decomposition, A body can look burned, and I know this because I've seen bodies that have been submerged in water during the stages of decomposition. Okay, I've seen pictures and videos of these things when I was in college. So with that all being said, a body can absolutely look burned after 2 days due to natural decomposition, especially in a very hot day. Now, extreme heat accelerates biological changes that can mimic thermal injuries. However, if the body was placed in the water after death, there are other forensic reasons, both natural and criminal, for a burned appearance. And I believe it was placed there because of the lack of waterlogging. Now, natural decomposition mimicking burns. So the extreme heat of the day causes specific postmortem changes that an untrained eye can easily mistake for a fire injury. Okay. Within 24 to 48 hours in the heat, bacterial gases cause the top layers of the skin to start to lift, forming large blisters. While they look like second-degree burn blisters, a forensic pathologist will notice the fluid inside is dark and cloudy from cell breakdown, whereas actual blisters contain clear fluid. Okay, so there may also be skin slippage. As those blisters pop, the skin sloughs off in sheets, okay, exposing raw, dark, red, or pink tissue underneath. This heavily resembles a severe raw thermal burn. Now, if the body was dead on land for a day or two, okay, in the blazing sun before being dumped in the water, the sun-exposed skin can undergo a rapid darkening and hardening process known as post-mortem tanning. The skin turns dark brown, leathery, and brittle, perfectly mimicking a char injury. Now, I want y'all to pay attention to that. This is what happens if the body is dead on land for a day or two, okay, on a hot day in the blazing sun before being put in the water. Now let's read that again. The sun-exposed skin can undergo a rapid darkening and hardening process known as postmortem tanning. The skin turns dark brown, leathery, and brittle, perfectly mimicking a char injury. So that could be why his body looked burned. Okay? That could be why the body looked burned. Okay, please pay attention if, in fact, it actually did. Roger said, "You are teaching us, Queen." Thank you, beloved. Now, with that all being said, if the appearance is not a trick of decomposition, it is highly possible that the killer, pay attention, tried to destroy evidence before moving the body to the water. A medical examiner would look for vital signs of burning to see if the victim was alive during a fire. There would be soot in the airways. If the person was burned alive, they would have inhaled soot deep into their lungs and trachea. If the airwaves are completely clean, the burning happened after death. Now, a person alive during a fire will have lethal levels of carbon monoxide in their blood. A post-mortem burn will show normal blood chemistry. And if the water surface is heavily polluted, industrial, or an agricultural runoff zone, chemical exposure can erode the skin over 48 hours, causing a black or chemical burn appearance that has nothing to do with fire. Well, we know that isn't the case because this is salt water, okay? This is not water where they're dumping pollutants in it and, chemicals and things like that. So with that all being said, it sounds like the body was placed there to me. I don't know how you all feel about it, but that's what it seems like to me. And again, like I said, this is all inconclusive, only my theories and opinions. I don't want to paint any narratives. Okay? Now, with that all being said, I'm going to go to 2 more points. So, in a scenario where the person actually drowned, if the evidence aligns this way, it was a genuine drowning, and the burned appearance is purely a trick of the intense heat accelerating the decomposition. The medical examiner finds a distinct cone of white froth in the throat and fluid deep in the lungs. The stomach contains a large amount of the same water found at the scene. The burn blisters contain cloudy, dark decomposition fluid. The tissue beneath shows no cellular response to heat nor inflammation. The body is limp or only slightly stiff, matching a recent 2 to 4 hour immersion into the water. The blood has pooled in the lower parts of the body, matching the exact face down or angled position in which it was floating. Now, on the other hand, if the body was placed there after death, okay, if the evidence aligns this way, the claims are correct. The person was killed on land, and the killer used the water to hide the body or stage an accident. Y'all heard it? Y'all heard it? Y'all heard that, right? So with that all being said, the lungs and airways are completely dry or contain only a small amount of passive fluid. The blood contains normal oxygen levels, no asphyxiation from drowning, or it reveals a completely different cause of death, like a toxin or carbon monoxide. If the killer actually tried to burn the body on land first, there is no soot in the lungs, proving they weren't breathing during the fire. If it is a sun tanning from lying dead on land, the skin is leathery only on one side. The body is completely locked in a rigid rigor mortis that doesn't match a fresh drowning. For example, the arms might be frozen in an awkward position as if they were crammed into a car trunk. Purple blood pooling is permanently fixed on the victim's back, even though they were found floating face down. This proves they lay flat on their back on land for at least 6 to 12 hours before being thrown in the water. Okay? So I think that's about it. Now, in a formal investigation, distinguishing between a primary freshwater or saltwater drowning and a postmortem submersion relies heavily on a structured internal postmortem examination conducted by a licensed medical examiner or forensic pathologist. External appearances alone can be highly deceptive in cases, especially when environmental factors like high ambient temperatures are at play. Now, they have a whole lot of other information here that I'm not going to get into, but they do say that in hot weather, the formation of gas beneath the epidermis causes epidermolysis, which is skin slippage when it starts to fall off. Okay, and putrefactive blistering within 24 to 48 hours. This natural artifact closely mimics second and third degree thermal burns to the untrained eye. To verify if actual fire or chemical burning took place prior to submersion, toxicologists will screen the blood sample specifically for carboxy hemoglobin, which is also called CH or known as COHB. Okay, they'll check those levels. A high COHB concentration confirms the individual inhaled smoke and was alive during a fire, whereas normal levels indicate either a postmortem burn or that the marks are purely an artifact of hot weather decomposition. Now, since he was found in salt water, I did research on that as well. Factoring in that the water was salt water shifts the exact physiological benchmarks that a forensic pathologist would measure. Salt water is a hypertonic fluid, okay, meaning it has a much higher salt concentration than human blood does. This specific chemistry radically alters how the lungs, blood, and decomposition behave over a 2-day period compared to fresh water. So when a living person aspirates salt water, the high osmotic pressure instantly draws water out of the victim's bloodstream and pulls it directly into the lungs air sacs known as alveoli. Now, in a true saltwater drowning, the lungs are not just hyperinflated, they're massively heavy, bulky, and saturated with thick, protein-rich, jelly-like fluid. Okay, this is marked pulmonary edema. Okay, now if the individual was placed in the salt water after death, this active osmotic suction cannot occur because circulation has ceased. So the lungs may contain a small amount of passive fluid seepage. The lungs may contain a small amount of passive fluid, okay, seepage due to gravity, but they will lack the extreme weight and intra-alveolar, I think that's the word, alveolar fluid saturation characteristic of an active saltwater drowning. Now, this is a lot. Now, because salt water pulls fluid out of the vascular system and into the lungs, a living drowning victim undergoes the acute hemoconcentration. Their blood volumes drop. The blood volume drops and the remaining blood becomes highly concentrated. Pathologists historically look at the difference in electrolyte levels, specifically sodium and chloride, between the left and right chambers of the heart. Okay, in a saltwater drowning, the blood returning from the lungs to the left side of the heart typically shows significantly elevated sodium and chloride levels. Now, if a body is dumped in the sea or salt water after dying of other causes, the electrolytes in the heart chambers remain relatively balanced or change uniformly via passive decomposition rather than showing a distinct vital concentration spike on the left side. Salt water actually acts as a temporary mild preservative as compared to fresh water. So microorganisms and bacteria generally multiply slightly slower in highly saline water than in stagnant, warm, fresh water. Therefore, if the body shows advanced skin slippage, massive bloating or gas bloating, and deep burned looking petrifactive blistering after only 48 hours in the water, it heavily suggests that decomposition was already underway on land in the hot weather before the body ever entered the water. Do y'all hear that? Do y'all hear that? Like I said, we won't know for sure, but that's what it sounds like. It sounds like that body was placed there at the scene. Okay, it sounds as if the body was placed there at the scene. Have you heard about the medical examiner, Stacey Turner from Mississippi, who did all the black? Yes, beloved. We covered that this morning. And for those of you who missed the morning broadcast, please go back and check that out, okay? Yes, absolutely. We did talk about that. She is nefarious, okay? Dan says y'all are making fair points, but please stay focused and don't argue between each other, please. Oh, I thought that was for me. Okay. Danielle says, yes, ma'am, I heard you loud and clear, Queen. All right, thank you. So now with that all being said, I have another treat for you. Okay, shout out to Don Lemon. I keep using his receipts, but he's interviewing really good people who are speaking on this case. And so we're going to get into it because he had two guests on there today. One of them was Lee Merritt's. Okay, and we're going to listen to a bit of this. Like, step everyone, please like and share. And shout out to Don Lemon. All right, so Dan said, no, ma'am, that was the nefarious chat. Okay. Thank you, Reggie. Yes, that's right. Shout out to the replay gang. Okay, so here we go. We're going to check out this interview because I was listening to it earlier and they were giving some very good information.
Many new subscribers to the
a lot of these cases, the only reason that the wrongful death goes before the grand jury is because of the public outcry. It was 70 days with no grand jury presentation after the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery. In this case, we know the public that there was a viral incident being rolled out on July 4th when Nolan first went missing. And so it was in the public view. If that national discussion wasn't happening or playing out via social media, I don't know that everyone follows the process. Just because there was a body that was turned over to the medical examiner doesn't mean there's going to be a presentation to the grand jury automatically. It should, especially when there's a mysterious death. But for the death of young Black men all across the country, it's not just a feeling like it's not properly investigated. We've talked about this as a community, procedural justice. We don't get the same justice. We often, every year, a few times a year, we find a young Black man mysteriously hanging from a tree somewhere. And the assumption is suicide. And it's even when there's no suicidal ideations and when there's no suicidal background, when there's no explanation for why this young man chose this particular form of suicide, those cases are not always presented to a grand jury.
Lee, why? I don't understand how we, well, I guess I do understand how we got here, but in this day and age, in this information and technology age, for there not to be any updates, for them not to appear to be following procedure now, how do you think we got here?
Now, honestly, that's a difficult question. The reason I take I realize the gravity of the question is because I feel like as a nation, we were going in one direction after 2020, after George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor and the national reckoning about race in this country. We discussed openly for the first time, probably in this country's history, that we have a systemic race issue. And for what it's worth, we talked about it on a national level. And I was with Ben Crump the other day, and Kamala Harris called to speak with Nolan's family. And there's still a national discussion going on. I just want to make that quick plug. But since our government swung conservative from the White House to the judiciary to a lot of the Congress until recently, the conversation concerning violence the Black community is facing and the lack of accountability in our justice system, lack of equal protection in our justice system, has become more about how Black people feel. And we've gone towards this myth collectively of just assuming that we can operate as a meritocracy without fighting for equity. And when I talk about equity in this conversation, we're talking about just equity in process. A young 18-year-old child has died, an American citizen, on the 4th of July weekend, on the weekend this country turned 250 years old, and we want the same process for that young Black man that we would have for any young white man in the same situation. And we don't get it. We have to fight for it, and we have to demand it. And we have a group of officials who have assumed no foul play without explanation. You know, a young man died, that's foul. We have to figure out how that happened.
I want to bring in now Charles Coleman, attorney as well, to discuss this. Charles, we've been trying to have.
And let me just say this. We're going to have to stop allowing law enforcement. We're going to have to collectively, okay? We're going to have to stop law enforcement from just simply dismissing the deaths of our people at the hands of white people. We're going to have to stop allowing them to simply tell us there's nothing to see here, folks. There's no evidence of foul play. It looks like an accidental this, that, or third. It looks like it was self-deletion. We're going to have to stop allowing them to get away with that, okay? We're going to have to stop doing it. And this is exactly why I'm so glad that Ben Crump has gotten involved. I don't care what anyone says or what you think of that man. At the end of the day, he's bringing light to this case. All right? He is bringing light to this case. And everyone, in my opinion, has a role to play. Okay? Truth Brown says, yeah, 250, 4th of July, all Klan, but it's coming to an end for them. They've been doing this too damn long. I agree. I absolutely agree. Okay, I absolutely agree. Now, let me just say this before I get back to the video. Okay, so here's the thing. Now, remember, they said that they're going to bring it before a grand jury before they, in fact, make an arrest. Okay, that's what that says. Because usually there's an arrest and then the case is taken before a grand jury. But here's the thing. Let me tell you why they want to do this. You see, the police can refer a case, or they might want to refer a case to a grand jury without an arrest as a neutral fact-finding body. Okay, neutral fact-finding body. Avoid the optics of an improper or rushed arrest. Okay, or to utilize the grand jury's broad investigative powers, such as subpoenaing phone and bank records. Well, they don't need the grand jury to do that. Okay, so if you ask me, the reason they're doing this is for the optics of it all. Okay, not to avoid an improper or rushed arrest, because, you know, they should have already been arrested and they have not been. So this is clearly about optics. He doesn't want to embarrass those people and their parents. Okay, that's what this is all about. Now, a grand jury has the legal authority to subpoena bank records, cell phone data, and compel reluctant witnesses to testify. When police lack the immediate probable cause required to make an arrest, that's when they use the grand jury's tools to build a stronger case. But that isn't the case here. That isn't the case here, because they say that they have been speaking to witnesses. Okay. They had probable cause because it had been reported to them allegedly that the people were seen cleaning the boat at 3 a.m. We know that his phone and keys and wallet were not given voluntarily to the parents. This is all suspicious. We know that they instantly got lawyers and deleted and deactivated their social media. All of these are probable cause, and Sheriff Ledbetter knows that. Okay? He knows that. Now, with that all being said, presenting to a grand jury is a strategic way to formally charge a suspect once the investigation is complete, rather than arresting them and risking the case falling apart in court later. Well, we know they're not worried about that because they don't want to arrest them in the first place. Now, in a high-profile or politically sensitive case, such as this one, and it is political as well because we have a whole judge that's involved. So in a high profile or politically insensitive case, referring the case directly to the grand jury provides transparency and community involvement. It prevents the police department from facing accusations of either covering up a crime or rushing to a biased arrest. So maybe that's why they're doing it. But hey, we already are looking at them with a whole side eye. Okay, that's what we're already looking at them with. But here's the thing. I don't even think it's that. In my opinion, they're doing all of this, like I said, because they don't want to arrest them. Can you imagine those three little minions having their hands cuffed behind their backs and their parents having to walk alongside them as they're carried into the jail? Okay, and the parents going right along so they can bail them right out. Now, if the suspect is not considered a flight risk or a danger to the community, there is less urgency to handcuff the individual immediately. Police can allow the legal process to evaluate the evidence first. And they have had ample time, in my opinion, to evaluate the evidence. And why haven't they gone and collected that boat? Okay, I have several questions. All right, let's continue.
Have get you on. Been trying to get Lee on, and so I'm so grateful to have both of you gentlemen on. Tim, can you grab him, please? He's freaking out. So I don't know if you have a dog. They do not like fireworks, nor do they like thunderstorms. That's just a real thing. So Charles, thank you for joining us. You've been paying attention to the story. I don't know if you've been covering, because I know that you are a contributor over at the MS Now. Did you watch the press conference today with the family?
I did, Don, and I actually did my own reel on this today on Instagram. So anybody who follows me can go see it, and anybody who hasn't, you can follow me on IG and check that reel. I want to echo the sentiments of my very good friend, Attorney Merritt, who was just talking about the importance of process. Speaking as a former prosecutor, I think that what I can say is public pressure has its place in terms of how things are, but we live in an age where things get distorted so quickly that sometimes too much public pressure from the wrong places in the wrong ways can give cover to a bad investigation. Because what ends up happening is that law enforcement and other entities just end up saying, oh, well, you guys are all just a mob, and they just sort of ignore the legitimate and rightful requests and demands for an investigation. I talk about in my reel on social media today how this family has done effectively a masterclass in what is supposed to happen in these types of situations. They have retained counsel, competent counsel in the form of my friend Ben Crump. They have called for an independent autopsy, a third-party autopsy. They have continued to put pressure on investigators for information that should help support the investigation. All of this sort of like makeshift timelines that people have come up with online don't do much other than sow dissension. If you have that type of information, take it to law enforcement, because oftentimes the only thing that it does is create confusion. What I will say is theories do not get convictions. Evidence does. Evidence is what leads to arrests. And while it is difficult for the public to understand, yes, it is Mississippi, which means that we need to remain vigilant. Yes, it is the South, which means that we have to keep our foot on the gas. But the public is not driving the car here. And I think that people need to be okay with that and understand that in terms of how we process what we do and do not know. And that's the key word, is paying attention with vigilance. And like Lee was just talking about, process, and the demands on the system for the type of process and accountability and transparency that any person from any other race is entitled to and should expect in a situation like this.
I want to play this, and I want you both to listen to it and then respond. By the way, let me do this properly. Charles Coleman is a legal analyst, civil rights attorney, former Brooklyn, New York prosecutor. He's also the co-host of the Big Brothers Briefing podcast and the author of the What Matters Now newsletter at Beehive. Here's Christine Walmsley.
Just curious about the dynamic that you guys have had, Christine and Elmore, with law enforcement up until this point. Have you all been able to speak with the sheriff, any of the lead investigators, since what happened last week?
So that was actually clarified in today's meeting. The DA's office wanted to take over that communications because they do have a victim advocate, which I appreciate, but of course that wasn't what she, took responsibility and accountability for. But we were not communicated with that information. So for us, like I said before, the last time we actually spoke to someone with the sheriff's department was last Tuesday. That was via text message that I initiated, just asking for an update. So that's the biggest thing is, I appreciate that she took accountability for saying, hey, that was actually our doing. But, we have a setup now. And so the hope is that we'll have that open lines of communication.
Lee, last Tuesday, over more than a week ago. Come on now.
I mean, families really suffer. This family, no exception. From the process, from the moment that a family learns, however they learn, via phone call, with an officer visiting that their loved one is dead, they don't have the body yet. And when you're a mom, the first thing you're thinking is how do I get back to my son, to my boy? And families like Nolan's have been forced to wait days at a time before the body is released to them. And during that time, they should be hearing from the district attorney's office. They should be hearing from that victim liaison's office. She was gracious, very gracious, just now saying, they took ownership and they introduced.
Way too many. That's still one victim too many. That's still one person. That's still one unalived person too many to have a shoddy investigation where law enforcement has not employed its absolute best to get answers for this family and for the public.
Lee, what it is like when people don't have this agency and then everything goes wrong. And then they end up having to reach out to a Lee Merritt or to a Ben Crump and others.
Yeah, we've been here before. So when you ask, what happens when you don't get this kind of attention, it gets even worse. There's some high profile cases that people have discussed in the Black community for years. I remember a young man came up missing briefly and then was discovered rolled in the mats. And his name is eluding me right now. But his body was discovered in a position that clearly indicated that his body had been disfigured by whoever was responsible for his death, and it was brushed under the rug. We've been dealing with a high-profile case again, just in the Black community. When there's a young man who dies in our community, and I'm talking about in American society, we're supposed to respond a certain way. We saw that I live in the community of Frisco, Texas, and a young man named Austin Metcalf was stabbed to death by another young man named Karmelo Anthony. We saw the
We've covered that. We've been covering that case here. So if you can offer us anything on that, Lee, thank you. We would love to hear it.
Yes, sir. Well, we saw the American legal system do what the American legal system does. It is aggressive when investigating crime, particularly for protected individuals like minors in a community where we're not used to that kind of violence. And so because Austin Metcalf was a valuable member of our community who was protected, we saw an aggressive prosecution. And of course, I would argue an overly aggressive prosecution. We saw a murder indictment immediately for a young Black man, a peer at the time. We've seen this young man, Nolan's friend, or a person who's held himself out as Nolan's friend, say, you want to be careful about rushing to conclusions. It could be that, his cause of death was something accidental and maybe there's no criminal element involved. The Karmelo Anthony family was not given that kind of benefit of the doubt from any aspect of the community. It was an immediate charge, immediate conviction, the highest bond that I'd seen placed on any murder case in North Texas, and a rush conviction in one of the most severe sentences that I've seen for murder, 35 years. But that is a reflection of how aggressive our criminal justice system is when properly motivated. The problem is we don't see that kind of motivation for every member of our community. And one of the least protected members of our community are people like Nolan Wells.
I'm being told by a friend of the show who's also a friend of yours, Monique Presley, just texted me and says Kendrick Johnson.
Kendrick Johnson. Thank you, Monique.
Thanks, Monique.
Thanks, Monique.
I do want to say, and this is something that the public needs to understand in terms of why it's important to be patient. We have seen, not often enough, but we have seen cases where
I was experiencing brain fog.
the aggression of law enforcement to respond to the public has led to mistakes in an investigation that have prevented a conviction. And so the one thing that I want us to keep in mind is the long game here. And the long game, even as we are right now clamoring for answers and clamoring for understanding, as we should be with respect to Nolan Wells, is that whomever is responsible is held accountable in a court of law. And that means that we want to make sure that when and if an arrest is made, that it sticks.
Yeah.
The grand jury is a part of this process. And yes, as a prosecutor, you can likely get an indictment, but the most important thing is that you want to get a conviction. Our community has suffered far too many times in seeing someone get indicted, someone get arrested, and not get convicted at trial because the evidence didn't stick. And so I want us to understand the importance of patience in this moment. Not saying that that means we are any less vigilant, but that we are continuously disciplined in putting the amount of expectation on this process so that when we get to a point of accountability, that accountability does not elude us.
I want to talk about some of the misinformation with this. And if you guys just have a few moments, give me 1 minute. I'm back with you guys. I'm going to get a word in from our sponsors. Okay, I have a question for you. If your freedom to practice your age.
When you say we, I need you to be more specific, because I think that it's what happens is everybody has different interests, and there are people who benefit from the confusion. I was talking earlier about the fact that it becomes easier to dismiss everything when things are going in different directions. And so for those of us who are either looking for the truth or wanting the truth, it's important that we are very, very mindful. It's funny you mentioned Monique. She and I have gotten into it at different points about being mindful of sticking to just the facts that we know that have been verified. People,
you didn't watch our show yesterday because Monique she lit us up yesterday. You know Monique, she don't
yes,
hold back.
I mean, and she and I have had that happen before. But what I can say is, in a situation like this, we must be very, very careful because a lie will make it all the way around the world before the truth has a chance to get out of there. And in this situation, it is so delicate and fragile in understanding, separating what's true versus what's speculation. Like, for example, the autopsy conversation. People, I have literally seen what I know now to be AI made up autopsy reports from the death of Nolan Wells. That has not been reported by any major news outlet. That has not been confirmed or reported by the attorney from the family, and that has not been reported or confirmed by the sheriff's office in Mississippi. All of this is an example of where misinformation becomes an issue. And so if you are someone who's invested in the facts, it is important that you do what I and Monique have been doing, which is telling people, slow your roll, check your sources, because that's how information spreads. And I know that we are interested because we suspect that there is a narrative that may be at play. And there's no reason that we should ignore the idea of that narrative. But to Lee's point, it is not any of our place in this point to try to create that narrative. If that narrative exists, it will surface through the facts. We have to be vigilant in our pursuit of the facts rather than trying to make the facts fit a particular narrative. Yeah. And I think that understanding that is really important in this moment. I'm not a journalist, Don. I say this all the time. But like, if there's anything that I could learn from and that we could all learn from principles of journalism, because I did take intro to journalism, is the importance of remembering objectivity and going where the facts take us rather than trying to craft a story and making the facts fit the path that we want it to.
Charles, I appreciate it. That's why I didn't say journalist Charles Coleman. I said you are media savvy.
Thank you, sir.
Hey,
yes,
Lee.
Yes, sir.
Lee, I want you to listen to this before you respond. I do want to hear from you, but here, roll it, please.
Terry Crump, Brian Rose, Juicy Wire. There's been a lot of misinformation that's been spread online, especially the pool picture that was shared by you, and you had said that.
Well, I didn't share it. I reposted it. We're reposting everything. Let's make it clear. We're reposting everything because we're trying to get people to come in and call. And so we've said from the beginning, we're in a ferocious search for the truth. And so things out there, we are trying to post, ask people, do you know something about this? Let us know. Just because we repost does not mean that we authenticate anything. Look at our social media. We have always been very careful to say this is a repost, and we almost always give a declaration that that's what it is, a repost. And so we want people to continue to call about everything, videos, whatever interactions they saw. And thank God, we are getting dozens of people calling every day saying, I was on Horn Island. This is what I saw. I know these individuals. This is what we know. They said, we understand the sheriff's investigation has hundreds of people calling too. And so the hope is that when this is presented to the grand jury, all relevant witnesses and evidence will be presented to them so that we can have a fair and impartial investigation into the death of Nolan Wells. We were very honest and candid with the district attorney, and she was honest and candid with us.
So, Lee, you get the point, and I understand what he's saying. And then, but there is a responsibility on the media as well. When we saw the picture, we reported it not as fact, and I said specifically, you should not take this or report it as fact. This is what is out there. The date it was posted is not an authentication date that it was, that's not necessarily the date that the photograph was taken, right? Just because it was posted that day. But anyway, again, that's a whole misinformation thing. And I think that where there's a vacuum, people fill the void. right? With something. And I think when I say that there needs to be more transparency, see, this is about transparency. Ben is talking transparency there. For me, it's about transparency. When I say that they need to be more diligent responding to the public and to the media, I mean, I just feel like there should be a cadence every day. We're going to give a press conference at 12 or at 3. And if we can't make it, we're in the middle of investigation, then we will let you know. And even if we don't have anything, we'll say, hey, look, nothing new has come in, but we're still asking people to share. And that gives at least the veneer of transparency, which is what the family is asking for, and the thing that the public has concern about. You take care of a couple birds with one stone. That's just my feeling.
Yeah, I think that's...
And you bat down the misinformation that way. If something comes up, then you have an opportunity to respond to it. There's a scheduled time. If reporters call your office, you say, the secretary or the comms person, whoever answers is, they'll address that at noon. They'll address that at 6 every single day, even if there's nothing. Some days we'll get in front of the camera. Sometimes if we don't have anything, we may just put out a release and say, there's nothing new. We're back tomorrow at our normal time. That's what I'm just saying. Some professionalism, some cadence, something to at least give the sheen of transparency.
Don, I think you're exactly right when you say where there's a vacuum of information, the vacuum is going to be filled. We see this in every case. There's going to be early on, there's going to be misinformation. The question is, why has the misinformation captured the narrative? I think you're right to point the question back at the state. The state actually has resources to engage with the family. So you don't have to have a bad narrative about not speaking with the family for 72 hours or for a week, because you have a public liaison office. You have a public information office, a taxpayer-funded PIO officer who could set up daily meetings with the public, because we need information from the public, because this is an event attended by the public. People do have information. It's circling on the internet that is just a part of, or the early part of these investigations now. But when you have a sloppy and lethargic sheriff's office who's doing a piss poor investigation from the beginning, then you'll have online sleuths who say, hey, what about this information? What about this information? And that information will capture the narrative, but you do have to point the blame back at the state, the people that our taxpayers give resources to investigate and to handle this and to share with the public who has a vested interest in the outcome of this case, what's going on. And I want to slap back at the narrative that these are just some outside people who want information. This is the American public who have a right to this information, who have paid their taxes, and their resources have set up institutions designed to get them information quickly, because we built transparency into our democracy.
Yeah. Lee, you want to say something? I mean, not Lee, Charles.
No, I saw someone say in the comments that, talking about the system, and people have sort of come at me in the past couple of days with the frustration with the system. And I want to impress upon our viewers that every one of us on this panel right now is a Black man. And every one of us has, in different capacities, seen the system not work for Black men. Seen the system have massive integrity gaps when it comes to justice and accountability on behalf of Black men. Nolan Wells is very much so our brother, our nephew, our son. And I can speak for, I believe, all three of us in saying that we absolutely are as invested as anyone outside of his family can be, to the highest extent, in finding out the truth and wanting to see accountability and transparency in this case. Do not get it confused and believe that because we are prompting the integrity of the system in this manner, that we do not understand what's at stake here. But I need people to understand the other side to how this works. Because God forbid that we were to change the color of the victim and who we suspect, we would also want transparency of the process.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other part that people aren't necessarily considering. That adhering to the process must allow us to make the process work both ways, both for victim and for offender. And so Lee talked about the idea that if it were the other way around, that we would likely see an aggressive rush to an arrest. Well, the importance of transparency in the process is that if that ever were to be the case, that we have precedent that we can point to and demand the same type of transparency and thoroughness in terms of the process before that aggressive type of decision is made. And so looking at this, appreciating the severity and the impact that it may have on Nolan Wells and his family, but also looking at the bigger picture and the implication that it could have for other Black boys, both as victims potentially and as suspects, requires that we really do put our foot down and demand a transparent process that has integrity.
Charles, Lee, you guys are G's, man. I appreciate you, both of you, coming on. It's good to. It's been a while, Lee, and it's good to see you. And look, you're welcome back anytime. We'd love to have you back. That's Mr. Lee Merritt. What's the name of your firm, Lee?
Lee Merritt
Civil Rights Attorney. Lee Merritt Law Firm. Civil rights lawyer, and he also partners with Ben Crump. Charles Coleman, legal analyst, civil rights attorney, former Brooklyn, New York prosecutor. He's also the co-host of the Big Brothers Briefing podcast, which I.
Okay, so with that all being said, we're about to be out of here. I have like 2 more videos that I want you all to see. My cousin just sent me a video that we're going to look at. He just sent me a video from this attorney from the public opinion court because he says I was just talking about the grand jury situation rather than arrest. So let's get into it and see what she's saying. And then I have one more video I want to show you all of this raccoon who refuses to hold the people that don't look like her accountable.
Update. The district attorney, Goldilocks, has came to the front and said, we are going to take it straight to the grand jury. Win the investigation. Never pay attention to what they say. Pay attention to what they fucking don't say, because that's not the complete method. But what they're trying to do is stream this to grand jury, which is proper, but no, we want them fucking arrested. We want a fucking mugshot. We don't want you taking it straight to the grand jury so that you can streamline a fucking no bill. No, we want a official fucking arrest of these thugs that did something to Nolan and has lawyered up instead of assisting his parents. So no, you're not going to skip a fucking step. You're going to make these thugs get arrested with a fucking warrant. They're going to take a fucking mugshot. They're going to have to post bond. They're going to have to go in front of a magistrate judge to post bond. Then you send that shit to the grand jury. We're not new to this. You're not going to try to play in our fucking face, lady. We know what the fucking procedure is. And that's the procedure of when you're trying to fuck up a case of an innocent Black boy to fit your fucking power in that community. No, you're not going to do that on our watch. So don't be coming out here Goldilocks saying that y'all going to take it straight to the fucking grand jury. Cool. But take it to the fucking grand jury after the police have issued official fucking warrants. They have been put into handcuffs. They have been taken down to the station. They have been fingerprinted, strip searched, have to spend the night in a cell, having to go before a magistrate judge where a bond can be set, and their parents having to foot the fucking bill because these thugs in charge can't fucking afford it. That's the process you better do. Don't come to us talking about some fucking streamlines and no bill and shit. Girl, we're not dumb. We're not you. And you're not going to play in our face about Nolan. In the Nolan Wells update, the district attorney, Goldilocks.
Okay. I want you all to pay attention because that's exactly what I was telling you. They don't want to arrest them. They don't want to embarrass or humiliate them. That's what they don't want to do. These little possible killers. Okay, we don't know if they did it yet, but we're going to find out. And it looks like they did, in my opinion. Okay, now it's me. I'm just saying, says the white tea people don't get hard-earned college degrees. They get white tea privilege degrees. Absolutely, they do get privilege, beloved. They absolutely do get privilege. Thank you for your insight into the topic and your contribution to the channel. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Now, Chad Power says they can use the Asian crime bill. Thank you for that, beloved. That was cute. Okay, thank you for that and your contribution to the channel. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Okay, now, with that all being said, I'm going to this last video that was posted by Dr. Umar. And this was just sickening for me to watch. Okay, because I want you all to pay attention to the sickness that some of our people clearly have. Okay, to the woeful ignorance of some of our very own. Now, this woman, you will hear her sitting there and going in on Black folk for simply trying to hold other people accountable. Okay? Now, I'm going to use an overlay because I don't know if this is also on ScrewTube or not. But let's get into it because these white women are literally telling her that sometimes white people are the problem.
Either.
Okay.
All
Yeah, kings and queens
civilization-
in Africa. It's just not true.
It's not first world civilization, but it is a civilization.
You see what liberalism has done to your mind? You're sitting here
I'm not a
arguing a
liberal.
point. Well, no, I said liberalism. I didn't say you're defending people
defending
lying on your ancestors
No.
as people make you feel guilty about it.
Humans be humans. Humans are not great creatures. So when you tell me I've heard a story that humans cannibalized each other, I'm going to believe that.
White people cannibalized Black people during
that
slavery.
could have happened. Yes.
This woman said that white people civilized Black people during slavery. Now, to show you how sick in the mind she is, here's the thing. Anyone that was a slave owner, anyone that owns other people and beat them viciously, had them eating their food out of troughs as an animal would, such as a pig, okay, who whipped them and did all manner of wicked things to them, who raped them, the men, the women, and the children, they're not civilized. So how in the world could they civilize anyone else? Okay, please make it all make sense. How could the uncivilized civilize anyone else? Okay, just so we're clear, the slaves were already civilized before they were enslaved. Okay, they weren't slaves to begin with. They were kings and queens, doctors, mathematicians. Okay, that's what they were. And they were turned into slaves. This lady is clearly obtuse. Okay, clearly obtuse. But let's continue.
And we just finding out about it. You see how stupid that is? Like you think if white people were eating people, we would just now be hearing about it? They literally make you feel bad for everything.
Now, she says if they were eating people, why would we just now be hearing about it? She needs to speak for herself because maybe she's just now hearing about it. I've known about this for decades. Okay, since I was a teenager. My mother taught us this as children growing up. Okay, I want you all to pay attention. Greta says Candace Owens has plenty of company. Honey, this lady is more ignorant than Candace could ever be. Okay? This is all ridiculous. I mean, at least Candace knows the truth.
Thing that happens in the Black community is blamed on white people. Don't you think that if there was a chance for them to tell y'all that y'all were eating them, that would have been one of the first things?
I think cannibalism has happened in human history all over the world.
White people.
Yes, white people too.
Cannibalizing Black slaves that they paid good money for. I mean, that's just a fact.
That's not true either.
Okay. Yeah.
Woefully obtuse. That's what that is. And here's the thing. You know how ignorant she has to be sitting there trying to tell a white woman about her ancestors? She doesn't even know her own ancestors thanks to slavery. Okay, and our history being stripped from us, our heritage and those things. But she's sitting here trying to tell this white woman about her ancestors. You see, the white woman knows that they ate the slaves because I'm sure her elders in the family have told her. They've talked about these things. Now, this lady is so ignorant. It's obvious for me to see that she has not done a bit of research. She does not read and research. She's one of those ignorant people who just goes on social media and then she sees and hears things and then she goes and repeats it as though it's factual and hasn't a clue. And then she had the nerve to call the white woman stupid. Do you know how stupid that sounds? That's what she said, right? She called her stupid or dumb. But at the end of the day, we know that she doesn't read or research, okay? Because she hasn't ever heard of the book, The Delectable Negro. She hasn't also heard of the book, The Iceman Inheritance, which would let her know who was or wasn't civilized. And in fact, it was the Black people who did the civilizing, okay? They were called Moors. They civilized the Romans, taught them to bathe in everything, okay? Before that, they would only bathe once a year, okay? Mostly once a year when it was time for someone to get, or on special occasions, like if someone was getting married. And I know that you've all heard the saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You know why that exists? Because back then, when they did start taking baths, they would all bathe in the same water, one after the other in the same dirty water, okay? And then the baby would be the last because they would go by age, the elders first and then on down the line. And the baby would always be the last to be bathed in that filthy water, and then it would be thrown out. So that's why they say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But we can see she wouldn't know anything about that because she clearly doesn't read or research like I see it. Well, with that being said, I'm out of here. Listen, I love you all to life. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. I will be back in the morning with your morning wake-up call. Also, is tomorrow Thursday or Friday? Tomorrow's Thursday, okay? Yeah. So Friday, I will be doing a live with Secret Service Sam on his channel, but I'm going to stream it on my channel as well. I'll do my regular morning broadcast, but I'm going to do sometime during the day, hopefully earlier than later, I'm going to do a broadcast with him on his channel. And like I said, I'll stream it on my channel as well, so everybody can still tune in. All right, this is all crazy. Anyway, with that all being said, listen, I hope you all enjoy the rest of this night. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. Peace.
Hit him with that gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got